She danced and sang with them and made a lot of people laugh, but some of the biggest names in Hollywood really didn't like Annette Funicello. She was called Disney's pet by a famous star who wouldn't talk to her off camera. Someone else told producers lies in their ear. Some people worked together against her in secret for years. Annette didn't say anything. She kept their names secret while they tried to hurt her, but she finally told the truth before she died. And even Walt Disney was shocked by it. Her birthday is October 22, 1942, and she was born in Utica, New York. Virginia John Albano and Joseph Edward Funicello were happy to be Italian Americans, and they raised their daughter in a close, knit working-class neighborhood. Family was very important in that part of Utica. The streets were filled with the smell of garlic and fresh bread. Almost as many people spoke Italian as English. It was a simple life, but it was full of pride and love. For Annette, that strong sense of community shaped her identity long before she ever stepped foot on a stage. When she was 4 years old, her folks packed up and moved west, ending up in the San Fernando Valley in California. They didn't want to be famous in Hollywood. It was all they wanted, a better life. The move, however, was just the beginning of something much bigger. Annette was so shy that she could hardly speak up in public. So her mom put her in dance classes so she could feel better about herself. They weren't ready for Annette to take the stage so quickly. When she was in the spotlight, her quiet personality went away. They didn't see it coming, but the dance lessons lit a spark. That spark grew into a flame in December 1955. She did Swan Lake at the Starlight Bowl in Burbank when she was only 13 years old. Until it wasn't, it was just another concert. Walt Disney was sitting there quietly watching, but no one in the crowd knew it. He wasn't trying to find ballerinas. It was his job to find kids who could be stars. He saw something very special when he saw Annette glide across that stage. Grace, charm, and something else he couldn't quite put his finger on. A few days later, she got a call that would never be the same again. He wanted her to be on his new TV show, The Mickey Mouse Club. The tests were really tough. With the goal of becoming one of the 24 Musketeers, more than 200 kids showed up. She wasn't the first person in line. She wasn't even third or second. She was the last person chosen. 24, but Disney felt something about her. He saw something that no one else did. She was more than just skilled. She was real. He knew that people would connect with her. He shot her. She didn't let us down. Before she signed the 7-year deal, she was making $160 a week. Some people make that much in a month. There was one catch to the deals, though. Her pay would go up quickly if she did a good job. She made $500 a week soon after. You also have to pay for merchandise, royalties, reruns, and public performances. Annette Funicello made $1 million by the end, at only 20 years old. What shocked Disney Studios the most, though, was what came next. Fan mail, a lot of letters, not just a few here and there. She was getting between 6,000 and 8,000 letters a month by the end of the first season. It was a surprise to everyone. The other Musketeers weren't even close. She got more letters than anyone else at the time, and Taylor was already a big movie star. Ellen was called into Walt Disney's office one day. His face looked confused. "Do you have a lot of Italian relatives?" he asked. "No, because there are so many men for you," she replied. He was shocked. People from many places were drawn to her beauty. America, especially young boys, fell in love with her. She sent all of them back, even the ones that basically asked her to marry them through the mail. That good-hearted persona wasn't an act. It wasn't just dance numbers that she was in anymore. Soon she was in charge of whole shows. It was shot on a real farm in Verona, Wisconsin, and came out in 1956. It was both a story and a lesson. People saw her engage with cows, farmers, and people who live in the country. It wasn't at all like Hollywood, but people loved it. After that, she played a sweet, normal country girl in Spin and Marty. People all over the world knew her from these parts, which weren't just TV hits. There were comics, books, and reruns of those shows for decades, but every story has to end, even the best ones. The last show of the Mickey Mouse Club aired in 1958. The group cried, hugged, and said goodbye on set. Annette was the most upset. Afterward, she said, "I've never cried so hard in my life. Most of the Musketeers were freed, Annette not so much. Disney asked her to come back to his office. She thought she might lose her job. He gave her a new deal instead, this time for her own cereal. She was not being let go, she was being raised. There was a different story going on behind the scenes. It was a love story between two teens. Annette dated fellow Musketeer Lonnie Burr in secret during the first year of the show. He asked her to marry him at a party, and she said yes, at least for a short time. Her dad didn't like it. He made her give the ring back right away. Still, they had one special moment together. Annette's first kiss was from Lonnie. He didn't even know that until her book came out in 1994. After many years, they got back together for a TV show called Lots of Luck, as adults. It was the only time two original Three Musketeers worked together. It was a sweet moment that showed that even in the tough world of Hollywood, some childhood memories last a lifetime. Something strange happened in 1959. Annette Funicello, a friendly young girl, put out a song that was only 1 minute and 38 seconds long, but it changed the history of music. It was called Tall Paul. It wasn't just a hit. It caused a big stir across the country. It got as high as number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 6 in Canada. Annette was the first woman to ever get a rock and roll song into the top 10 with that song. The Sherman Brothers and Bob Roberts wrote the song. A big break came from the same result. Dick Clark asked her to join his well-known Caravan of Stars show. From September to November 1959, she went on tour with Paul Anka, Dwayne Eddy, the Coasters, and other artists. In Houston on October 21, the tour stopped in the middle of the show so she could celebrate her birthday on stage. There were some rough spots, though. The crowd got loud some nights, fights started, people were put in jail. Annette, on the other hand, kept singing. Her rise was so quick and strong that Walt Disney only hired the Sherman Brothers from then on. They would win an Oscar for Mary Poppins in the end. When Disney was 60, he tried something new. Italian is the name of their new record. The idea was simple. Give Annette a package with an Italian theme. On the cover, she was shown snapping her fingers while dressed in a fun Italian way. The music also stuck to the theme. Omeo was the big hit from the record. It was sexy, emotional, and different from anything else she had done. People liked the song because it made them feel like they were lying on velvet. More than 1 million copies were bought. The mood was also present in other songs on the record. Mia, Mia, Dream Boy, and Please Sir. A lot of them were written by the Sherman Brothers. There was more to it than just music. It was a full test of marketing. This record, which was about Italy, came between two others in a clever trilogy. Disney was slowly building her image before Hawaiianette and after Dance Seat. Pineapple Princess came out in the summer of 1960 and worked again. It stayed at number 11 on the Billboard lists for 9 weeks. It turned out to be her third biggest hit. The Sherman Brothers also wrote the song, which was the album's main theme. There was a strong tropical vibe to that song. Annette wore a dress with palm trees on it. Blue Hawaii, Song of the Islands, and Hukila Song were on the list of songs. The album was short, only 12 songs and 26 minutes altogether. It still made a big mark. Pineapple Princess was even advertised on a special pink label that came with some copies of the record. The song has been performed in many languages. A new version was made by the Hawaiian group Naliopeli Mahana in 1999. There was also a German cover called Anana Nana Nat Princessin. The song was used in the comedy Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar in 2021. It never really went away. Walt Disney had a very clear plan for Annette behind the scenes. He hoped she would become the next Teresa Brewer. Brewer had over 600 songs, and in the 1950s, odd hits like Music, Music put him at the top of the charts. Disney looked up to her success and wanted to use the same strategy she did. He thought Annette could do the same thing, but here's the catch. Annette didn't say which singer gave her sound. She said that Tutti Camerata was her manager at a meal. Annette Funicello met Paul Anka, who was 18. She was only 17. They clicked right away. A simple talk turned into something much more important. In less than a year, they couldn't be separated. They talked on the phone for hours, sometimes up to 3 hours a night. They called more than 100 times over time. It was more than just a crush for two famous teens. She was Paul's first love. Anne told me she felt the same way. People thought they were too young and innocent, but Annette wrote later, just because we were 17 didn't mean our love wasn't real. The love story was so strong that it led to hit songs. Paul wrote Puppy Love. the next year after Put Your Head on My Shoulder, in 1959. He wrote that one because he had heard people laugh at their relationship by calling it puppy love. The song made it to number 2 on the Billboard lists. He sang it to her on the phone, too. They also made songs together. Paul sat down at the piano and told her, "Annette, think of the words, say what comes to mind. I'll fit the music to it." It wasn't just love songs. For two people so young, it was a rare chance to work together and get ideas, but Hollywood made it hard. Annette had a deal with Disney, and Disney was very strict. Paul had a clear memory of it. They always had an adult with them when they saw each other. Even going on a real date with her was against the rules. They told him over and over, "Mr. Disney doesn't want you near her." They treated Annette like property. Paul had to sneak around to spend some time with her by himself. He once got a worker to play cards with Annette's mother to keep her attention off of him so he could sneak a kiss. It wasn't just annoying that there were rules. They were breathing too hard. Over time, the stress broke them down. They really loved each other. They were going different ways, though. Paul, who is now 82 years old, told it like it was in an interview in 2024. She planned to marry him. It was impossible for me to do. He was scared, feared getting too close, and he knew he couldn't give her what she wanted. Annette began dating Paul's agent, Jack Gilardi, soon after they broke up. They got married. After a year, Paul got married to someone else in Paris. The pain never really went away, even after everything. One time, Frankie Avalon told Paul she did love you. Paul just said, well, I loved her. Her love life was changing and her business was about to take off. Beach Party came out in cinemas on July 11, 1963. It did so well that it broke records. It made 48 thou too, 126 just on the first day. It made $2, 192.8, 100 in its first week. In just 30 screens, the movie made $1, $2 million by the end of the year, but it only cost $8, 100,000. The people in charge at American International Pictures were shocked. They thought the movie would make between $3 and $4 million. It was by far their biggest hit, and it helped start a whole genre. For hours, kids stood in line to see it. A lot of people went to see Beach Party, which was better than big movies like The Birds and The Nutty Professor. They were named Makers of the Year in September. Annette was a movie star, but her fame made people dislike her. Just before a national live show, her custom-made outfit was gone. She had to use an extra outfit that didn't fit. The people in the room could tell she was uncomfortable. It turned out that a coworker who was angry about not getting the lead part had hidden the outfit on purpose. Annette never said anything bad. She didn't say anything. She thanked everyone. Behind the scenes, everyone knew what had happened, but she never named people. There was a lot of jealousy just below the surface. It didn't end there. As the demand for beach movies grew, movie makers wanted to make even more. More skin, more good looks. They chose to change Annette's look. The next draft added dances and scenes in bikinis and other revealing clothes. She said no when she saw the changes. She thought it went against everything she stood for, and especially the fans who had been with her since the Mickey Mouse Club. The bosses were not pleased. They quickly got cold. They used someone else in the ads instead of her. They even hired another actor. Something had to be done to make things calm down, and it didn't give up. In a world where young women were often asked to sell their looks, she refused. Because she was honest, she became a target. Other actors were very angry behind the happy beach scenes. They thought Annette didn't need to try. She was always chosen, always admired, and always great. Everyone was annoyed by that beautiful picture, so they had to fight harder. It was more than just envy. That feeling was anger. An angry rival who had lost to Annette hid her outfit before the live show. Some people said that she only got parts because Disney loved her. She might have been, but that preference made her feel heavy. She had to protect the image that made her famous in the first place while others tried to get attention. Annette Funicello fell in love with Jack Gilardi, her Hollywood agent, when she was only 22 years old. At the time, she was going from being a Disney child star to a full-on teen star, with roles in hits like Babes in Toil and the Beach Party series with Frankie Avalon. Gilardi wasn't any agent. He was in charge of her career. Their work friendship slowly turned into something more personal, and by January 1965 they were married. People responded right away and with strong feelings. In fact, Charles Schulz used Lioness to cry over Annette's wedding in the Peanuts comic strip, saying, "I can't stand it." This is terrible, how depressing. Annette Funicello has grown up, but behind the news stories and the cartoon tears was a relationship with a lot of unsettling parts. After the fact, Annette said that Ghilardi called her Dolly, the same name her father used. She thought it was cute at the time, but now she sees it as a sign that she still saw herself as a girl and not yet a woman ready for marriage. She also said that when they got married, she still felt like a 16-year-old because she didn't want to argue or upset him, so she let Ghilardi make all decisions. They had 3 kids together, Gina, Jack Jr., and Jason. But as the years went by, that quiet obedience turned into quiet suffering. As she became more sure of herself, she started to feel trapped. Her marriage wasn't a partnership, it was a one-sided deal born out of naivety and an imbalance of power. Frankie Avalon was a bright spot in her life at this time. These beach movies were hits because of how well they worked together on screen, but their friendship off-screen was something very rare in show business, honest, loyal, and long-lasting. Avalon became Jenna's godfather, and he wasn't just a name on a certificate. He stayed involved with family for over 30 years after the movies were over. While they were filming Back to the Beach in 1987, Annette started to show signs of multiple sclerosis. Frankie was there and saw the change. He kept in touch with her kids when she couldn't talk in her last years. This was one of those rare Hollywood relationships that never ended. Avalon, a father of 8, came to the Funicello home and treated them like family. He stayed by their side until Annette's death in 2013. After almost 18 years of marriage, Annette finally split up with Ghilardi in 1981 or 1983. She was no longer the obedient young wife. The divorce was painful, but it changed her life. She had grown. She knew how to speak out instead of taking their case to court like many famous couples did at the time. They settled down without a fuss, and she made sure her kids stayed close to their dad. The 5 years she was a single mom were some of the best of her life. She went to school and finally found her voice. She said those were the years when she became herself, no longer afraid of conflict and no longer living in someone else's shadow. Then Glenn Hall came along. They met years before at the Hollywood Park racetrack when she was a teenager visiting her parents. When she got divorced, she went back to the track and reconnected with him. They were both in their 40s, divorced, and ready to start a real relationship. Their relationship grew slowly and began as a friendship. On May 3, 1986, they got married, and at the reception, Mickey Mouse showed up and danced with the bride, a magical nod to her Disney past. Together, they made it work. Annette Funicello was 45 years old and having a career comeback in early 1987. She had reunited with Frankie Avalon and was back on screen for Back to the Beach, but something scary was going on behind the scenes. She was constantly dizzy and had headaches that wouldn't go away. Doctors told her she had multiple sclerosis, which changed everything. She didn't tell anyone, not even her family or friends. For 5 long years, she hid it. While she smiled for the cameras and performed on stage, her body was slowly shutting down. She was afraid of being seen as weak or broken, so she didn't say anything when she tripped while filming. No one knew that the woman they saw laughing and dancing was barely holding it together. But hiding it cost her. People saw that something was wrong because she couldn't walk straight and looked unsteady. Rumors began to spread. It was all over the news that she was drinking. Tabloids said she looked like any other old child star with a bottle in her hand, which wasn't true, but the rumors wouldn't stop. For someone who had always been seen as America's sweetheart, it was heartbreaking. Annette didn't say anything because she was afraid that people would stop loving her. Instead of correcting the lie, she lived with the shame. She was fighting a disease that takes away everything over time, but everyone thought she was just another Hollywood burnout. It hurt more and more until it was too much. She decided to tell the world the truth in a powerful interview on 2020 in July 1992. She had been living with MS since 1987. The news shocked everyone. People cried, apologized, and listened. She said she kept it a secret because she didn't want to worry her fans, but the rumors had gone too far. That same year, Disney made her a Disney legend, which felt like the right thing to do. Annette wasn't just a former Mouseketeer anymore. She was the face of a disease that many people were afraid to talk about, and her honesty helped others do the same. She turned her pain into purpose, and she wasn't done yet. She started the Annette Funicello Research Fund for Neurological Disorders in 1993. It wasn't just a name on a letterhead, it was her public fight. She made sure that every dollar went to research, no salaries, no waste, just science. The fund supported new studies, worked with big groups, and focused on treatments that could really help. Her husband, Glenn Hall, did everything he could to help. He raised money, spread the word, and kept the mission going even after she died. The fund gave families hope, doctors information, and a reason for Annette's pain. Glenn Hall was more than just her husband, he was her lifeblood. While she was sick, Glenn took care of her, protected her, and spoke for her for 27 years. As her illness got worse, he changed to fit her needs. When she couldn't walk anymore in 2004, he made her a custom wheelchair out of a harness racing seat. When she lost her speech in 2009, he still talked to her every day. She was fully dependent on him by that point and needed a feeding tube. But Glenn never put her in a facility. He stayed with her, hired nurses, and fought for her honor. He even joined the board of her foundation and helped plan fundraising events. He wasn't just taking care of her body. In March 2011, tragedy struck again when their home in Enino caught fire. Annette had lived there for almost 40 years and was inside with Glenn and a nurse when it started. Firefighters got there quickly, but the damage was already done. She breathed in smoke and had to be taken to the hospital. She made it through, but it was very traumatic. The house where she had raised her kids and had friends over was gone. They sold the remains for $714,250 and left their old life behind. They had nowhere else to go, so they moved to a small ranch outside of Bakersfield. It was simple, out in the country, and not near Hollywood. Annette spent her last years there, surrounded by farmland instead of bright lights. Glenn cared for her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and made sure she was safe. It was a long way from the stages of Disney, but it was safe. She could be more than the girl with a bow in her hair there. In 2009, she lost her voice completely. The woman who used to sing Tall Paul and light up the Mickey Mouse Club could not say a word. She was 67 years old. She could no longer move, speak, or even eat. She was in the last stages of her illness. She could still blink and listen, but she couldn't talk or blink. In 2012, a Canadian show showed footage of her that showed how much she had changed. Her body was still, and her face was blank. Her friend Shelley Fabaus was in the segment, and she looked very sad. As of April 8, 2013, the girl who had once won America's heart was trapped in her own body. The battle was over. At Mercy Southwest Hospital in Bakersfield, Annette's family decided to turn off her life support. She was exactly 70 years old, and her children, Gina, Jack, Jr. Shelley Fab, who had been in a coma for years, was also there. Her daughter Gina said softly, "She's on her toes dancing in heaven." The scene broke people's hearts all over the country, and tributes poured in. Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, called her one of Walt Disney's brightest stars and praised her for being brave and gracious during her illness. He changed the name of Disney's soundstage one to the Annette Funicello stage. That was the place where she had filmed the Mickey Mouse Club in the 1950s, and it became her final home in the world of Disney. Frankie Avalon was devastated. She had been her co-star, her date to drive-in movies, and their lifelong friend. Her daughter texted him, "She's gone." Avalon had seen her slowly disappear over the years, piece by piece. In an emotional interview, he said she hadn't talked to anyone in years and that her life was terrible. He told a secret he had never told anyone else. Disney used to tell Annette she couldn't wear bikinis that showed her belly button. Even at the beach, she had to be good. That was the Annette that everyone loved, and that was the Annette that he lost. Her Disney Legend Award in 1992 seems even more significant now. She was the first dancer to receive it, and she got it right before telling everyone she was sick. A few months later, she got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Sharon Baird, another Mouseketeer, once said, "She never changed from that sweet person who cared so much about others." And that's true. She never changed, not when she was a child star, not when she became a pop star, and not when she lost her voice.